Newahaskano. Thank you for being well. That's our greeting. I'm here today representing the Haudenosaunee, the Iroquois Confederation of North America. We're a union of 6 nations: Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga, Cayuga, Seneca, Tuscarora. A union based upon the principles of peace, strength, and the power of the good mind united under the great tree of peace. Over to my left here is our entourage, Chief Sidney Hill of the Confederacy, my son Rex, and also the CEO Hans Hassel. When you sit, over 1,000 years ago, the great peacemaker instructed us thus: when you sit and counsel for the welfare of the people, think not of yourself, nor your family, nor even your generation. Make your decisions on behalf of the coming generations, those faces looking up from the earth layer upon layer unto the 7th generation. Peace, strength, and the power of the good minds united are the principles of our union, with a balance of leadership between the men and women, a government by the people and for the people. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of Indigenous peoples' sustainability and innovation. This forum speaks to entrepreneurship, creative technology, and strategic thinking. Sustainability speaks to a comprehensive understanding of the limits of the Earth's resources and the universal laws of nature. We thank the United Nations Environmental Program, UNEP, the sponsors of this forum, for allowing us to address what we see as the challenge to the future: capitalistic perspectives that are too short-sighted, to a more long-term one with respect towards nature's resources, and get rid of that myth that greed is good. Our mandates are peace and equity. In the summer of 2000, a runner, a middle-aged man wearing sealskins and stripped to the waist from Greenland, addressed the annual gathering of the traditional Indian elders and youth. And he met with this message. He said, "The ice is melting in the north." We took that message to the United Nations in New York, where leaders of world religions were holding a symposium of world peace. The message was that in 1960, native hunters saw rivulets of water coming down the face of their ancient glaciers. Now those rivulets have become rushing streams, and today they're rivers of gushing water the color of granite, carrying cold water into the salty seas of the Atlantic. This message was received with alarm, but countries failed to act. On September 22nd, 2014, last year, I addressed the United Nations Symposium on Climate Change and Global Warming, and I gave the same speech from the same podium of the General Assembly. There were many somber faces and heads nodding in agreement. I then informed them that this was the same speech I delivered 14 years ago from the same podium. There was a stunned silence as we all reflected upon 14 lost years. My point was made, but to what effect? Time is now a critical factor. Nature's response to the breaching of planetary boundaries by human species was noted by the eminent cartoon philosopher Pogo. And he said, "I have seen the enemy, and it is us." We are responsible for this climate crisis and global warming. The science is clear that our compounding populations now challenge the carrying capacity of the Earth. The Earth is heating up, the oceans are rising and becoming more acidic, weather patterns are changing, storms, winds, fires are more frequent and increasingly severe. They will continue to push as we push past the 2 centigrade that is the line the states gathered here have set. The Indigenous peoples and the environmental organizations and many scientists say that 1.5 is a mark that ensures a better quality of life. We've passed that, but it doesn't mean we have to stay there. We can return and maintain that 1.5 if Corporate greed is regulated. Governments must defend and be responsible to the constituencies of their nations. Gro Harlan Brundtland, as head of the UN Commission on Environmental Development, coined the phrase sustainable development in her 1987 report, Our Common Future. In that seminal report on environment, sustainable meant sustaining future resources for future generations. That agrees with our mandate of peace and a good life for coming generations. I had the good fortune of discussion with Boutros Ghali at the end of his tenure as Secretary General of the United Nations. And I asked him what was the most significant event of his tenure. And he said, it was the breaching of the United Nations by the non-governmental organizations, the voices of the people. It was the international NGOs that invited the indigenous peoples of the Western Hemisphere, including the Samis from the north, to the UN in Geneva in 1977. We are the voice of nature. We speak the languages of the natural world. We are indigenous. We speak with the ancient knowledge of where we live, languages of life, wellsprings of the future. We are the scouts of ancient territories, the ones you turn to guide you through our forests, mountains, deserts, rivers, and the trackless expanses of wind, snow, and ice. We live there. We are nature, you and I, and we know nature's laws, and we abide. Today, our allies, relatives, and friends are the youth, the common peoples, the artists, the actors, and musicians, always seeking creative ways to express our concerns, and now arrays of environmental organizations, schools, and universities concerned for our future as a species. We speak for the animals of the forest, the creatures of life, the life-sustaining forces of nature, water, air, and land. We are the indigenous people with an S. We assure our right to be in the legally binding document of this forum on climate change, and not just in a preamble. And we say that the maximum global temperature increase should be 1.5 degrees Celsius. Anything more will destroy our indigenous homelands. So you might ask, what are we doing here at this Sustainable Innovation Forum in 2015? The answer is that we're here as owners of Plantagon, an unexpected collaboration between indigenous values of sharing and long-term thinking and modern technological know-how. Plantagon is a hybrid between a for-profit company and a nonprofit organization. We are awarded as one of the 100 leading innovation companies of the world, leading a cluster of Swedish-listed sustainable engineering and design companies meeting the challenge of food security. We are here as proof that there are practical solutions to current problems, and the business as usual is over. Today, more than half of us live in urban areas, and more people are moving into the growing cities of the world. In a few years' time from today, we'll be 10 billion people, and over 70% will choose to live their lives in the urban centers. This urban sprawl will, of course, demand more land, and most scientists agree that we do not develop, if we do not develop our methods of how to grow food on an industrial scale, we'll be out of arable land by sometime 2030 or 2040. It is therefore my privilege as the present chairman of the board of Plantagon to give you an example of how we can meet this challenge. What Plantagon developed together with our cluster of Swedish-listed clean tech companies and leading universities is a vertical greenhouse with scalable multi-layer systems. It allows us to produce local food with clean air and water inside polluted urban environments, even major cities, cutting costs and environmental damage by eliminating transportation and delivering directly to the consumers. The core of our innovation is a helical transportation system. It makes it possible to let the sunlight in between layers of plants. It is closed loop, adjusted for industrial production. Same quality, same quantity, every day. The climate inside the greenhouse is strictly controlled, and everything going into it or out from the greenhouse is filtered, both air and water. Plants consume CO2, so we need to boost the levels of CO2 in the greenhouse. Since the cleanest CO2 there comes from our own breath, we push the CO2 emitted from the hundreds of people working in the buildings of the plants, and we take the oxygen emitted by the plants and push it into the office building. This sets a new standard of indoor environment. In short, what we have created is a transformative, profitable, super green real estate urban farming solution. One that produces the best indoor climate for both peoples and plants and makes extremely efficient and safe local food production possible. To give you an example of what all this means in practice, we can use our first project in the city of Linköping, south of Stockholm, as an example. A 19-story high office building using the Planagon system on the whole south facade. The total ground footprint of this building is 1,700 square meters or 18,000 square feet. The food production is between 300 and 500 tons. More than 1,000 kilograms per square meter used on the ground, or 200 pounds per square feet. Using a closed system as a double skin facade, only this building in itself cuts 3.6 million kilometers of transportation yearly. We save 1,000 tons of CO2 emissions and 50 million liters of water every year, or 13 million gallons, and we save 60,000 square meters or 15 acres of land. This building will prove that sustainable industrial scale urban agriculture really works, both technologically and economically. The Planagon greenhouse will dramatically change the way the world produces clean and safe food. It allows us to produce safe food with clean air and water inside urban polluted city environments, cutting costs and environmental damage by eliminating transportation and delivered directly to the consumers. Finally, you should know that Planagon is the first company ever created outside of North America by Indigenous peoples. It is, of course, somewhat unexpected for a Swedish modern management to lead a company mainly owned by traditional culture as the Haudenosaunee, now being mentioned as one of the innovation leaders of the world. It is also unexpected to us that we would initiate a development within the Swedish clean tech industry, and that Sweden would present our company as one of the highest-ranking innovation companies. The values of the Haudenosaunee and our long-term thinking, combined with the Western concept of business, jointly offers a solution more sustainable, equitable, and suitable for the 21st century and the common good. And peace prevails. Truly, we need to meet the challenge, not only on how to make business, but indeed, why do we make business? And business, as usual, is over. Thank you.